Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, woohoo, Neil, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are
Very
you?
polite. Good afternoon to you too.
Very highbrow.
Indeed, he do. Any evidence you can have a curved adjacent when measuring an elevation angle?
No, every sailor that held a sextant would be lost and not know what the heck's going on if that was actually what was taking place, which can't take place because you can't have an angle with a curved adjacent.
Kind of hard to prove a sphere if you have to use a flat plane to do it, you know?
When they get to that stage in the argument, they start asking us why the ground beneath their feet would be curved. Or telling us that, well, I haven't begged any questions yet. It's like, yeah. So far, you've just measured a flat plane. And as a result, you think it's okay to tell us that because you haven't assumed a sphere yet, the measurement of a flat plane, when you point out that you're measuring a flat plane, has nothing to do with the ground. Nothing at all. Nothing at all to see here. It's not to do with the ground. That's what they tell us.
Yeah, the caller was it who was it? Wally. Yesterday's show, I think he admitted it was baseline was flat and it wouldn't work with a curved adjacent. So they measure it flat, and then they go into assumption world and they assume their globe. They assume parallel sun rays. They assume everything after that because in reality, it's flat.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, the Black Swan took care of that. You got to produce radius value. And you asked, Charlie, right? I caught a little bit of that show 20 times for R. And I mean, if you ask me for my address, I'd give it to you instantly because I know my address. R is the address of Earth's spherical coordinates. Everything goes with R, but they don't know that address.
Well, we exposed the pilot, too. He swears that the horizon is Earth curve. But then we realized and we figured out that he's not a pilot. He's a charlatan phony.
Well, yeah, that might be true, and yeah. But aside from the faceless potato and the accreditation he lied about having in terms of being a pilot, he also claimed that we have Earth curve for a horizon, and then we had to show him how he was wrong in that regard, that the geometric horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, only exists in the maths, and that now claimed to be refracted and very close to a geometric horizon that can't be measured and can't be seen, is good enough. Well, it isn't. You can't refract a horizon with an R value unless you can get a geometric value of R. Speaking of R, any evidence of Earth?
Hang on. Well, even Andrew Thomas Young will tell you it only exists in the maths. And what's his face? The one that's no longer coming here anymore. He says it only exists in the maths. And now we got people on their side saying that the horizon is Earth curve, and yet we've got several pictures that Earth curve that needs to be physical, unchanging, is changing all the time. So is the Earth morphing?
No, it's just not a geometric tangent point capable of derivation of an R value.
Yeah, so one day it's 10 miles out, another day it's 30 miles out, weather changes, it's 15 miles out at the same height of the observer. That's not geometric.
Yeah. Meanwhile, hills, obstructions, doesn't really matter what the weather is. If they're in the way of something, they're in the way of something. They don't move and suddenly become miles behind whatever they're obscuring the day before because of a bit of weather. Hills have physical attributes that the horizon does not. And a hill is precisely what they're asserting the horizon is. Earth curve edge. Well, it isn't. We've debunked that.
Yes, and the two oil platforms in the original Black Swan represent the hills that don't move because they're known distances from the shoreline, and the horizon is behind both.
Correct. And I love the ant illustration on a basketball. Can't get around it. That's it. Earth is flat, people.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
None whatsoever. There's no Earth-based Coriolis, and you'd need R for that as well.
Yeah, you can't beg the question of Coriolis without establishing the axis first.
I tried to ask for R first, but 10th wasn't having it. Any evidence of the R value?
You're going to have axial rotation for that.
That's kind of true.
Hiya, can I ask something, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's echoing there, sorry. If the Earth was a sphere, which it's not, how would anybody go about measuring it, is my first question. And obviously they tell you now it's not an actual sphere, it's a oblique spheroid or whatever they tell you it is. Could that have one radius value? No.
Good question.
Or yes?
Good question. The answer, although we use it to annihilate the claim of Earth being a sphere, the answer is held within the modus tollens and, if you will, the original globe Earth assertion. So if the Earth is a sphere, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Well, that's what you'd have. In other words, when I described hills that don't move, if we were on a sphere, we would have a geometric sphere edge for a horizon. We don't.
That's correct.
And the 1.2 in the mathematics covers any derivations of the geoid they claim. So, not exact, but it should be right at that.
So it works both ways. They claim horizon sphere edge, it's blocking stuff. Look how it blocks stuff. It's therefore horizon that's Earth curve. Then we go, okay, if horizon Earth curve, then the distance to it can't be any more than this, because those are the geometric limitations of the hill you're claiming it is. As soon as the hill's behind the thing it's supposed to block, it's not a geometric physical Earth curve obstruction. End result, we haven't got an Earth curve for a horizon. We should have and would have if we were on a sphere. Hope that answers your question.
And even if they try to use refraction, they're still going to need R for 7/6.
Correct. When they claim the horizon is refracted and we've got a second horizon that we can't see, therefore not a horizon, and it's based on that, then they're going to need to refract that horizon we can't see, therefore not a horizon, at a rate of R in sphere-shaped air. That's atmosphere, or atmospheric refraction. Well, they've got to bend it at a rate of R which they can no longer measure because they haven't got a physical tangent point horizon to measure, because they're saying it's refracted. Now, if they then say, well, it's close to it, the horizon we see, it's close to the geometric horizon. Oh, yeah. How do you measure the geometric horizon to see how close it was? Answer, you can't. So being close to something you can't measure, can't see, and only exists in maths is a nonsensical statement that's wrapped up in a paradox when you're refracting the tangent point you would measure to get R to refract it with.
Nathan, come on. If Earth was flat, there would be no horizon at all.
That's a throwback from people who used to, in 2015 and 16, or thereabouts, assert that with Muppet Vision, when you see the side of your own head and the target on one side of the page and you on the other side of the page and a line drawn between them with a sphere Earth underneath that line, they say that the obstruction at the horizon, which you're now seeing the side of as a single point on a sphere, is the horizon that's going to cause the obstruction. And if you remove that sphere from that line, there's no longer a horizon at all, because the only assertion in Earth curve maths is that the physical geometric sphere edge limitation called Earth curve is the horizon and nothing else. There's no other cause for it. So when you stump some globe fundy by saying, here you go, here's a boat disappearing bottom first, long before your physical geometric sphere edge horizon, they'll start detailing how you've got optical effects, which are not a consideration in Muppet Vision mathematics, that would give you a unobscured view from target to observer if you draw a line in Muppet Vision. You on the left, target on the right, line between the two. You can write 20 million miles on the line in Muppet Vision when you're looking at the side of your own head, and you can still see the target in that representation. That's how they remove perspective from the curve maths. Any more,
Yeah,
Neil?
it seems like 2015 arguments are coming back. I knew that was going to happen.
We wouldn't have
No,
a
I'm good.
horizon in a Muppet Vision representation of a sphere. Yeah. We don't see the side of our own heads to make that claim, though. What we do see is things receding into the distance. That's perspective, something that's totally ignored in Muppet Vision mathematics of Earth curve, because their targets don't change in size with distance. The angular size, the not actual size, the apparent size of things that you look at gets smaller with distance. In Earth curve maths, a 10-foot wall's a 10-foot wall, even if it's a million miles away, because it's in Muppet Vision. So you write 10 foot on the wall, 6 foot on the man, draw a line between the two, and write a million miles on it. And go, there you go. On a flat Earth, you'd still see this 10-foot wall at 20 million miles. Because there's nothing obscuring it. There's no Earth curve in the way. Any more, Neil?
No, but I love when you give that brick illustration. I remember those days. Those were the good old days. No, I got it.
Need a fundy
But
to
the
lead with
world
that
needs
one,
to
though.
get it.
Yeah, the brick
Yeah,
examples, you've got to have a fundy actually asserting that the horizon is Earth curve and that there's no such thing as perspective or something like that. And then you just take them through step by step of putting a brick on the horizon at 1 mile. Can you see it? Yeah, I can see it. What about 2 miles? No, I can't see the brick on the horizon. It's too small. Okay, what about if you put 20 other bricks on top of it and start, or even build a skyscraper on top of the first brick? Can you see the first brick now? Well, no, it's too small still. But you can see the rest of them. Go. It's got too small to see in the distance, the bottom brick. But with the wider angle to the rest of them, you can see them. So it's disappeared bottom first without any Earth curve having to be described whatsoever. Just because it's too small at the bottom. Yeah, simple. But that's not accounted for in Earth curve maths. That's a just detailed description of things in the distance getting smaller. Well, do things in Earth curve maths get smaller? No. 100-foot building. Always 100 foot. And is that wrong? Well, no. Its actual size stays the same. But how it looks in a photo radically changes with distance. That's apparent size, angular size. Something they don't deal with in Earth curve maths. One straight line only. Which they don't have anymore. It's all refracted. The Earth curve maths is in the right shambles. Has been for a while. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Negative.
We may get Sleeping Warrior at some stage today. He did say he wanted to drop by about something, which I can't remember. I'm really sorry, Sleeping Warrior. But I'm going to guess it's probably something to do with gravity. We'll see. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Which one?
Whichever one Anthony Riley probably doesn't want to talk about. It'll be a different subject, but I don't know.
You'll never enter the scientific method with an invalid description of a phenomenon no one's ever observed.
You see, and that brings me to my son. He doesn't understand the scientific method. I tried to go through it with him yesterday, and he just doesn't get it. It's pseudoscientists.
How
Okay.
old is he?
If you ignore the experimental stage, you can see the
19.
scientific method with the hypothesis construction, which is if A, then B. So A is your presumed cause, B is the effect you're studying. So if A, then B. Also, if A, not B. That's the entirety of a valid hypothesis. So you've got your presumed cause, A, and it causes B. That's a supposition of cause. A, I think A causes B. If A, then B. I think A will cause B. B is your effect that you're trying to induce. In the hypothesis, you've also got if A, not B. So my supposition of cause is wrong. A will not cause B. Now that's the full hypothesis. Now when you vary A, it either validates your first supposition, if A then B, i.e. you vary A and it causes B, therefore A causes B. Validated that at that point, supposition of cause. You proved it. Also, if you vary A and it doesn't cause B, then you have proven what's known as the null. If A, not B. You've proven that. You varied A, it didn't cause B, exactly as predicted in the null. If A, not B, I varied A, didn't cause B, I proved my null. That's science. That's the scientific method. That's all it is. You see something happening, you go, I wonder what caused it. You assume something that might cause it and vary it to see if it does. If it does, you validate your alternative hypothesis, if A then B. If it doesn't, you validate your null. If A, not B. That's science.
Well, here's the problem. It's in the first step, the observe a natural phenomenon. It's psychology, science.
Psychology isn't science.
That's what I said. I said, where's the observed phenomenon? What are you studying? What are you looking at that you could science it? So I think that's where the problem is. They don't know what a observed natural phenomenon is.
Yeah, that's pretty basic stuff. Something happening in nature that hasn't been induced by a man in the first instance.
Well, it started with the computer from that movie. That movie, what was the name of that movie again? Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Because he was saying, "What do you mean? The computer is science?" And I'm like, "It's not science. It's technology, Jacob. Come on."
Well, we don't observe Earth rotation. We don't observe curved coastlines and horizons. So we don't even have that to begin the scientific method for their ball.
Correct. That's the next thing that came up. I asked him if he thinks Earth, which I did too. I thought is a natural, observed phenomenon, Earth itself, until Nathan broke it down. Now I understand that it's not.
It's like tree. Is tree a phenomenon? No. Is a leaf falling from a tree a phenomenon? Yes. Something's happening. You can try and ascertain the cause of that.
So was I safe to say that the computer is the cause of the computer is the man, correct? Because man created it.
Computer's not a phenomenon. No, it's not a naturally occurring event. So, in terms of scientific discovery, you're right in terms of what you said to him. It's a man that's made that. That's a piece of technology. It's come about through trial and error. It's not come about through systematic experimentation based on phenomena. Now, there might be certain components that have had a scientific background, but that doesn't make the computer science. You could argue that there's certain aspects of your microwave that come from scientific, valid sources. It doesn't make your microwave science. It doesn't make a computer science. These things are technology. They call them applied science because they've got a pseudoscience religion that needs validating, and when they don't have science, it doesn't sound as good. Because you go from scientist or computer scientist to dweeb. Well, they'd rather be a scientist, wouldn't they? Anthony, did you want to present something?
Yeah. Whilst there's not many trolls in chat, it's probably worth talking about this while they're not here, because I don't like talking to them about this stuff because they just deny, dismiss, deceive, they obfuscate to death. But I want to go through a little bit of general relativity for our benefit, because if we read it and we understand what's being said in it, if we ever have to cite it, we at least know where to look for it when we find it, or to find it. So it's only going to take a few minutes, but it's definitely worth addressing, because Elijah brought it up yesterday, and it needs more attention on our side because it's important. Let's get rid of that. So in Einstein's theory of general relativity, right, the current position on gravity today, in 1915, Albert Einstein declared something called space-time. Well, we know that it superseded Newtonian. We know that it snapped the wand. And even though Fight the Flat Earth doesn't like it, it doesn't change that fact. He claims that it refines, and we all know that supersedes doesn't mean refine. But in the context of that conversation, if we consider some of the text out of this section in the theory of general relativity from the gravitational field bit, we can see exactly why snapping the wand is the correct phrase and why refinement, as per Craig McNeil, is not. If we pick up a stone and then let it go, why does it fall to the ground? We'll compare and contrast that to if we have a helium balloon and then let it go, why does it fall to the sky? Be thinking of both. The usual answer to this question is because it is attracted by the Earth. Well, that doesn't work with helium balloons, does it? Modern physics formulates the answer rather differently. So I'm going to focus on the word differently because it's not refining the answer, is it? It's contrasting because it's different, not similar, different, for the following reason. As a result of the more careful study of electromagnetic phenomena, I don't know who he means when he says we, but I'm assuming he means the scientific community at large, we have come to regard action at a distance as a, quote, process impossible without the intervention of some intermediary medium. Well, we are in an intermediate medium. It's the density gradient, the pressure gradient that we breathe. And we just call it the medium, not the intermediary medium, just the medium. But let's be clear with what he says. He says, as a result of the more careful study of electromagnetic phenomena, the scientific community have come to regard action at a distance as a process impossible. That's not good if you're a Newtonian nonsense person, because he's telling you that it's been replaced because it was impossible without the intervention of some intermediary medium. Well, we know that a stone will fall through the medium, but we also know that the helium balloon will rise through the medium. So not everything's falling towards the ground, is it? Because even though he cites it as falling to the ground, that doesn't address the helium balloon. But he does address the word medium. Then he goes on to talk about magnets for a bit. We'll fast forward past magnets, and this is what I always get cited against me, and I love this, but they just ignore this when I counter it. The action of the Earth takes on the action of the Earth on the stone takes place indirectly. Another phrase for this, another way of saying this is there is no action of the Earth on the stone, because what it's saying is it's the medium that causes the interaction on the stone. Well, that's the same medium that causes the helium balloon to rise. So when he says the action of the Earth the action of the Earth on the stone takes place indirectly, the other way to interpret that is it doesn't act on the stone at all. And when he says the Earth produces its gravitational field, well, earlier on he's talking about the medium. He calls it an intermediary medium. So we've got this conflation of the intermediary medium with the gravitational field. Well, we just say it's the medium because it's the medium of air. And we know that things go up in air. We know that lots of things go up in the medium of water. And they're the two main mediums that we exist in, water and air. So I'm pointing out that what he's doing is conflating gravitational field with medium. And he's also acknowledging that there is no action of the Earth on the stone because it's indirect. Well, that means it doesn't exist. Now, for those people that still want to push Newtonian nonsense, they've really got to address this because he's literally telling you it's the medium that's causing the acceleration. But because he only references stones falling to the ground, if he'd said, if we have a helium balloon or an egg in salt water and then add more salt, why does it go to the ground? The answer that you then give cannot be because it is attracted by the clouds. Or what is the answer with the egg, the salt test, right? Because it doesn't transpose into this example that he gives, because there is no explanation for it on their model without addressing what? Buoyant force? Well, we know that that's a process impossible, so it can't be that. But we do know that there is an intermediary medium. So when you read the context of this and you start piecing it together piece by piece, you realize that he's describing relative density, but he calls it a gravitational field. He's literally describing relative density. He just calls it a gravitational field. When you understand that, all of a sudden, general relativity starts making a lot of sense. He's just calling it woo-woo, but really he's talking about the medium. They just call it gravitational to make you think that there's some kind of pull force to the Earth, even though he describes it as system process impossible. So I just wanted to raise awareness to that, because now you know where it is and you can go to it and you can pull these pieces out. When they compare and they refine the arguments mathematically, because it reduces down to, you can't have one set of maths reducing down to another if one of them is impossible. Doesn't work, does it? So this nonsense about refinement, it really needs to go in the bin. And people that push it really need to go in the bin with it. I'm done.
Very good. And thank you, Eli, for bringing it to our attention yesterday, because it sparked Sleeping Warrior to hear you bringing it to our attention, if you know what I mean.
Well, I have a question about that, because it's kind of ended up begging the question a little bit, but the space-time is described as a conceptual medium. Is that why they're saying it needs a medium?
Well, we're in a medium of air, but if he calls it a gravitational medium, then that medium can be unicorn medium, right? It can be anything that you call it. It's just a label. It's just a noun. But if you infer with a stereotype fallacy, for example, that all Geordies all wear shell suits because of Gaza, for example, I know that if you're American, you won't get this, but all Geordies wear shell suits because of Gaza, you're stereotyping Geordies with shell suits in Gaza. Well, if you do that same principle to gravitational fields that we breathe called air, then you're going to think that there's some force of attraction between you and the Earth, even though he expressly states that there is no action of the Earth on the stone. Well, that kind of throws that in the bin if you actually read it. But they can call it anything they want. But if the action is indirect, otherwise not there at all, then it's not the Earth that's causing it, it's the medium. And if we call that the gravitational medium, then guess what that makes you think? It makes you think that all Geordies wear shell suits because of Gaza. And it's not actually true.
What he's saying is, if you got the poo-pooing of Newtonian gravity in this Einsteinian text as describing the medium, would that be, and I'm going to explain it in the answer, call to invent a new medium? And the answer to that, although that isn't what you asked, is yes. John.
I think he was handing over to you there, John.
Yeah, I don't think he's obviously tied up doing something. That's fine. Okay, yeah, cool.
Oh, sorry. What I was going to say though is they're looking at this through like a lens where they think they already know that the Earth's a sphere, and they're trying to describe phenomena within that paradigm. So I think that's where most of their problems lie.
Yeah, they make you think that the stone falling to Earth is gravitational, but they don't address the helium balloon rising to the clouds, because what would they call that? That's not gravitational, is it?
As we started this
complete
discussion,
nonsense.
Go on.
It's complete nonsense. It's just doublespeak. It's like when I add the salt to the water and the egg accelerates, rather than admit that the salt was the cause, they say, well, the salt did this, but then that then caused this, and that's the reason why. And it's like, that's not what when you add the salt, that's the cause in a scientific test. But they don't like that, because in their model, when you change the density of something, it's just a benign ratio. It doesn't do anything. It's just, it's a measurement. It's not actually a force. It can't be a force. Well, because it doesn't jive with their nonsense, they have to hate on it. Well, at the end of the day, you see me pour the salt in, right? So whatever that does, the salt was the cause. It wasn't something that then caused something else. It was the salt that caused it. Otherwise, it would never have moved.
Speaking of experiments, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, I think that speaks to the problem that Anthony's getting at, is if you're in one of those fields and you're a heliocentrist, all of your phenomenon will be described with a radial value that can't be measured.
Speaking of radial values that can't be measured, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope, nobody's been there, so it can't be proven.
Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
Any angle measurements you would use to assert a distance would need to be taken on a flat plane.
Yeah, why would they need to be curved and adjacent? Why would they need to? Come on, Flat Earther, tell me why it would need to be curved. Just so people are in the know. That is the rebuttal we're getting at the moment. We point out that when they measure an angle to anything, they're utilising a flat surface, a flat Earth, a baseline that's straight, an elevation angle. I don't know how many other ways I can say this. That's what is needed to be done to measure an angle. And as a result, when we point out that they are in fact measuring angles off flat baselines, they ask us, that's globe-believing idiots who assert the Earth is a sphere and curving away from them in every direction, they ask us why we would measure the ground curve at that point. Now, we would not. But they most definitely need to, given that they're claiming it's curved beneath their feet. And yet they're moving forward by measuring a flat baseline and a flat Earth in order to then beg the question. Now, further to that, without a rebuttal, I can't even believe I'm saying this, that's basically, I haven't begged the question of a sphere yet. So it's not fair to haul me over the coals for measuring a flat baseline on a flat Earth. I haven't begged the question of a sphere yet. I haven't done anything yet. It's like, yeah, what you've done is proved it's flat. So far. And you haven't begged the question in doing so like you normally do. Man, that must be painful. To have to measure it flat first. And when we stop you there, you go, hold on, you've stopped me at the flat Earth measurement that I've just made. I haven't even assumed it's a sphere yet.
Did you ever think you would have your opponents in this arena telling you how flat the land underneath the mountain is?
I prefer level. That's me imitating the globe believer from yesterday. No, level. What's that, globe believer? You would prefer we said it's all level? Yeah, level. Not horizontal, level. You just can't make it up.
When they cite that phrase, that Merriam-Webster definition for level, it's the only one that references level in that same. The alternative, the correct word that they should be citing is the word equidistant. But level is flat. It's without any shape to it. It's like a single. We all know what level means. But because they've got that one, but 10 of them don't say the same thing. What they're doing is they're proving that they're cherry picking, because when you look at the definition from other citations, not one of them supports it. I had it today. One of the idiots, I compared Eratosthenes and Archimedes as religious figures in the same way that Noah and Moses. And I asked which way round was it? Was it Eratosthenes or was it Archimedes that had the ark? My point being that they're religious figures, right? And they dismiss the religious figures from the Bible. Well, it's the same as their religious figures in their nonsense. Who's to say that Eratosthenes even existed? Because if he did exist, or he's begging the question with his maths, isn't he? He doesn't know the shape of the Earth.
This is actually being a total bastard. So while Anthony, like me, has had a Christian upbringing, he's got no real affiliation to any religion whatsoever. But he can make the comparisons, and boy, do they sting. Because they assume every single one of us are Christian, bowing at the altar of Christ, religious fundies. Therefore, when you juxtapose their religious figureheads with Christian figureheads that Anthony, let's be honest, doesn't really care about. Let's be honest, Anthony, you don't, do you?
No, I mean, I was brought up Church of England like everybody else was. When I say everybody else, I don't mean literally every single person, but in the 80s, 70% of people were brought up with the Church of England education, and that involved Church of England. Nathan's pretty much the same as everybody that's in our area. I'm sure Jaron, he's the same year as us. I'm sure he was brought up with Church of America or whatever it is in America. Just that normal state Christian background to it. That's it. That's as far as it went.
Actually, no, that's not true. Just don't want people to correct me in the comments. He had a Jesuit upbringing. No, it's true. It's true. But one of the things he noted, which I will drop in at this point, was to say, because my wife asked me about it, why would it be that the churches talk about heliocentrism? It's like, because they're the ones who came up with it. And Jaron asked the same and pointed out the same on his show when he talks about his Jesuit education that he had. You know, you're walking around with all these priests and you're walking into the exact same science class and talking about a heliocentric model, which they came up with. So that's why. It's theirs. They're the ones that came up with it.
Protest. Bible didn't come up with that. Religions did. Catholic religion did, not the Bible.
Yeah, but we're losing the point here, though. The point I was making is that when they bring up they don't like biblical references, right? So, and I like to wind them up with it because it's brilliant. But when they bring up, someone said to me today, he said, well, even the Bible references that the Earth is a globe. And I said, well, go on then, give me the citation. So he cited a paragraph, and when I checked it on, because there's like websites that you can go to where you see different versions of the Bible quoting the same paragraph. And I couldn't validate his claim that the Earth said it were a globe in this particular revision of the Bible, but there was about 15 there that none of which said globe. They all said sphere of the Earth, or the circle of the Earth, or the Earth without having any shape being attached to it. They just said the Earth, but none of them said globe. So when I said to him,
none of them say globe. None of them say sphere. There's a verse in Isaiah, the circle of the earth. Please, someone define what a circle is.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what's the definition of a circle? Remember, one guy didn't know it here on the anti-flat earther side.
Well, two-dimensional shape, right?
Thank you. So you can't use that scripture, circle of the earth, and say it says it's a sphere when it never did. It's a circle. Circle of the earth.
Okay, yeah, we're way into the weeds now. I just want to do a quick shout out. Multi-Tom, thank you very much indeed for your super chat. He says, shout out to Wales Wally for using a level baseline to get angles, thus proving flat Earth. Priceless. I agree with the sentiment, and thank you very much for the super chat, Multi-Tom. That was actually the last housekeeping question after Anthony, or just before Anthony joined. We did actually cover all of them. Excellent stuff. But we've got off into the beaten, I don't know, 10th. It's good to have you back. That wasn't really where we were going with it, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just adding more clarity to it.
I'm just saying there's a lot of within the heliocentric rhetoric. If you ignore the fact that it's come from religious outfits, is that okay? Is that good?
Catholic.
Yeah, religious outlets as opposed to the Bible. I'm just trying to keep you sweet.
No, that's proper. That's a proper thing to say. It came from the Catholic Church, Copernicus, and even one of their priests said they discovered the Big Bang. That's why when you have Satan, who's the great liar, he's going to infiltrate and pretend to be representing Christ and make many churches. And in those churches, they have a little bit of truth and a lot of falsehood. And that's like the Catholic Church.
Right.
In other words, attempt to say and stop blaming Christianity for it. It's Roman Catholicism.
Indeed.
I know. I was in it.
So was I.
Okay, but we started this by pointing out that Anthony's very good at juxtaposing the characters in the narrative of heliocentrism for what they are, and the fact he compares them to Christian-based, what's the word? I'm going to get in trouble if I use the word characters now, aren't I? Figureheads. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, because I always get mixed up. I can't ever remember which way round was it. Was it Eratosthenes that had the ark, or was it Archimedes? Because I remember Archimedes had that eureka moment. No, that's in the Bible. I'm on about in their model, isn't it? Isn't it Archimedes that had the ark?
Noah.
No, Archimedes. Or am I getting things?
They remember the song? Who had the ark? Noah did.
Okay, here,
Noah
let me
did.
make it. Let me make it simple here. When you say Christian, we're thinking what the Bible teaches. When you say religious, I'm thinking what weird and other types of religious groups might say. So I think religious is a good way to say it, Anthony.
Okay,
Correct.
right. Look, I'm going to have
was,
to interrupt this to bring you probably the best Christmas cracker joke I heard all year, right? Which was, Jesus was 7 pounds and 6 ounces. How did they know? Because they had a way in the manger.
Oh,
That's a straw man.
Have you heard the argument from silence argument they give forward?
You explain the argument from silence fallacy.
It's when you say because someone hasn't brought something to the attention of the group they're in that it can't be true.
Okay. Was there an example that you said that we should or heard of? Go on.
Yesterday in the Discord, I was kind of sleazing around a bit, listening to stuff, and the argument was made that because there is a field of astronomy that does beg the question of a sphere, and because within that field, no one has ever pointed out it's not a sphere, it must be a sphere.
That's ridiculous.
What? Because nobody has
Yeah,
challenged Narnia, and there's an entire field based on Narnia research, and nobody within the field of Narnia research is questioning that Narnia is real. That makes Narnia real. That's the logic.
What I did to him is I said, well, under that logic, you can no longer question the existence or validity of the Catholic Church because they're in that field. You're not. Your position doesn't hold sway.
I'd prefer you use Scientology. It's so much closer a parallel. But yeah, it's absolutely correct as a well, then you cannot question you can't question any temple, church, or any religious outfit at all based on that logic.
That's correct.
Yeah, but that's where the argument from silence. It's what was used to justify their belief in this radius religion.
Well,
They don't need
that
a
takes
radius
us back
link,
to
man.
the schooling.
Hold
on.
Just go on, Neil.
That takes us back to the schooling. It's the education system that people are under. They become astronomers, and it's real.
Okay. And
That's where the problem is. We got to deal with the education system. It's always been the problem. That's why we're where we're at right now.
okay, you
So when are we
appreciate
going to
that.
attack the education system?
Okay, if you say the education system, and I'm sure Anthony will have something to say on this, what you're talking about is one organ in the Matrix. Now, if the Matrix is the world that we live in, and the Morpheus description of the wool that's been pulled over our eyes, what we all talk about, basically, right? That is the system. Now, Thomas Sheridan would describe it as the psychopathic control grid, because that's who it's run by. Now, that system has within it various other subsystems like organs in a body. One of those organs is the, quote, education system. It's a fundamental functioning part of the system as an entirety. In other words, to attack that particular thing, in this case education, is essentially you going up against the entire psychopathic control grid. I want Anthony to agree with me here. Please, God, agree with me.
It is.
But what's
exactly what it is.
oh God, doesn't matter. Is what okay? Let me ask you a question. Are what they're teaching in school true?
I don't know.
Pertaining to
I have no idea what they teach.
heliocentrism.
I don't know the answer to that because my kids aren't in school and I don't know what they teach in schools. I only know what I teach my kids.
You always slide around this, Nathan. I'm not letting you slide around this one here. What are they teaching in the schools? They're teaching this nonsense. People are becoming astronomers, astrologers, because they're teaching that it's real. 2 plus 2 is math. That's real. Teach that.
And do you have to go to school?
Anything else that they teach is
like,
real.
Is it like jail if you've done something wrong? Like, you don't have an option.
I feel like Neil's got a valid point right there.
Okay.
Because
Sleeping Warrior's not backed me up yet. He hasn't agreed with me. He hasn't said a damn word. Hold on, Eli.
No, I did agree.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, you got rumpus by... Just one sec, Eli. Just one sec. I just want to get it clear, right, that what I'm suggesting is that you brace against the entire system in that regard, and I just want Anthony to agree without being rumpus by Neil.
Yeah, I do agree.
Thank you. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say, well, yeah, if you teach kids that they can one day go to the moon, I don't even think I have to make any more examples. That's definitely something that they're telling children that they can do and aspire to be astronauts, yada yada yada. That's not cool. That's because if we were doing that about Narnia, nobody would be happy with that.
But it is cool in their
That's a
system.
false equivalence.
Okay. Neil, not Neil, 10th. Oh, maybe Neil, if you want. One of you give me an example from the Bible that's a well enough known Christian story about something coming from the sky. Yeah? Can you just give me one example that I can hold up, please?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah. Did you say Sodom and
Fire and
Gomorrah?
brimstone.
Fire and brimstone.
Fire and brimstone.
Perfect. Okay. You could just summarise Fire and Brimstone, and then I'll give you my juxtaposition. Anyone.
Who, me?
No, anybody who's just said Fire and Brimstone. I just want somebody to just give me a bit more padding to what Fire and Brimstone is. It's only a couple of words. Actually means.
It's fiery sulfur rocks and
Raining lava.
fire and brimstone, bro. It's sulfur and rocks and fire.
Because
the sin went up to the nostrils of God, the sin of homosexuality.
Okay, thank God we got there in the end.
That wasn't homosexuality; it was fornication.
Okay.
Oh, whatever.
Okay,
Come on.
stop. That's all I need. I don't need it. Bloody hell! It's like pulling teeth to get a bit of because, and then when I do, it's like fucking can't put a cork back in. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you go back. Let's say a number that won't cause offence. 300 years, and in schools they teach about the heavens and about how God breathed in the fire of fornication and brought down fire and brimstone. Now we, on the fringes, going, they shouldn't be teaching this in school. And they go, yeah, but the schools are run by the churches. Now, Anthony, what did you say was the school you went to? You mentioned your church. Was your school by any chance run by the church?
Church of England, wasn't it? I don't know.
So you went to a Church of England school. Now, if I turn around to the school and say, it's unreasonable that you teach your system and your structure about fire and brimstone coming from the sky when you're a church school, that's not reasonable. Equally, while everyone's telling me that Neil's perfectly reasonable for us to go and knocking on the door of the schools and say, your system and your structure that we have opted in to have taught to our kids is wrong. I see that as unreasonable. Now, maybe John will back me up and say it's disrespectful. Maybe he won't. We'll see how this goes. But I fundamentally disagree. That's why I homeschool.
Well, hold on. I would like to say something about the system we do have, because, I mean, it's being attacked right now. And I'm not a big fan of consensus reality, but we do derive a lot of our what we consider true from consensus.
Correct.
So,
Correct. We live in a... this really pains me to say and agree that we live in a... let's just shrug this filth off me. Consensus-based reality. Ugh. Now, when that
Well, I
finally
don't know if I
dawned
would-
on me, it just sickened me. But that's what's being taught in the school.
Or we homeschool our kids too, but that's not the point. The point is, if they're teaching something that is not right, I don't care whose system it is, you're not teaching fact.
Well, the point that I was trying to make is that if you give everyone the very best education possible, and all they get done is to sit and press a button for 8 hours out of the day, 5 days a week, you think it will harbor resentment within them to know that?
I don't just press buttons, right? That's an outrage.
Can I just point something out, Nathan?
Yeah.
New topic.
Nobody's answering
Shouldn't I put
John,
me
though.
on
Just point out that everyone's just completely ignored him. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
Just put my screen on for me, if you would. Just so that I don't have to make a video. I'm hoping that Nathan will trim this out nicely and repackage it.
Probably not.
Thanks very much. Nathan had a conversation with Flat Earth Math recently, Charles, and basically Nathan got to his question within 5 minutes. He basically said, how did Eratosthenes know the shape of the Earth? Because even by his own arbitrary position, which I happen to agree with, he says that you need to know the shape of the Earth before you ascribe maths to it. And I do agree with that. You do need to know that it's got a shape to it before you can ascribe an R to it. I just want to show you the contradictory nature of Charles. On Charles's video, under the heading from GPS from 2 days ago, you can see, if you scroll down, you can see Flat Earth Math. And look what he says. Look at the times here, 17 hours ago. So it's yesterday for me, right? He says here, he says, skip that first step at your peril. He's on about knowing the shape of the Earth before you start calculating it. He says, quote, I don't know how Eratosthenes knew the Earth was a globe. Asking me seems rather pointless. The dude's been dead for thousands of years, or maybe he never existed. Who cares? Well, ultimately, anyone that's interested or curious can find the shape of Earth without presupposing any value for R. This is the context, right? But it's clear he's saying that he doesn't know how Eratosthenes knew. But then we fast forward a couple of hours to today, and look what he says now, which I think was here. Must be this first one here. There we go. Sleeping Warrior. Oh my God. Eratosthenes knew it was a globe and thus was able to estimate its size. Or maybe he didn't exist, but you've made a very specific claim that mainstream science says that Eratosthenes proved the shape of the Earth's shape, cite the source. And then he says, do you know what? I think he's bloody deleted it. He's deleted his comment where he said, literally,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he literally said, because I've got him here. I said, so why did you only tell me yesterday that I don't know how Eratosthenes knew the Earth was a globe? He's literally admitting that Eratosthenes knew it was a globe, but for some reason he doesn't think about why he knew or how he knew, which is what we're asking. But he says yesterday that he didn't know how, but today he seems to be saying that it was a globe, and now he seems to be backtracking. So the point is, when Nathan was asking yesterday or the other day when he had the thing with Charles, Nathan spent 55 minutes trying to get him to answer the question. Charles spent 55 minutes evading it, ducking it, diving it, trying not to answer it, obfuscating it, passing the buck to somebody else in it, reversing the burden of proof on Nathan it, doing anything possible to avoid answering the question. Yet he seems to think here that, well, Eratosthenes knew it was a globe. Really? Well, how exactly did he know, Charles? Because that really is the question. You admitted yesterday you didn't know, but today you did know. So what's changed overnight? Because I'd love to know.
Well, he's caught in a paradoxical relationship within his own philosophy, because to measure is to know, but he can't measure a sphere anymore. So it's a bit paradoxical.
He didn't like that.
So
to measure is to know. To figure out, you mean? That's the phraseology he used. And I was like, figure out, to measure. No. Figure. They're figuring. Yeah, I know what that means. But for him, he can't measure anymore. So when you say figure out, no measurements. Just going to people like this example where they just knew already. So what, they beg the question for you? You didn't mention lying, Anthony. He repeatedly lied about needing R in the videos where he made explorations. And then I showed him where he had lied about utilization of an R value in false dichotomy. He repeatedly lied about it. it was super easy to go back to one of the videos, the one I left the comment on and said, here's you using R, and just trim them out. So when he asks me live, and I put in an edited video, where do I need R? I cut him saying, in the globe model.
Yeah.
Lying shit. But it's really
lying.
interesting to me that after that discussion, he went around doing damage control. And one of the things he said was, in 15 years of doing this, I've never been accused of being a liar. And I was like, enter Nathan, who proves you are one. It's like, man stands over corpse with blood dripping from knife. In all my life, I've never been accused of murder. Yep, and here we are with you red-handed with a knife in your hand, being proven to be one.
I've got to give a shout out to Ute as well. He said 15 years of being on flat earth arguments, right? So who are you arguing against 15 years ago? Can you provide any evidence? Because like most of us came to it around about, what, 15, 16? Well, if he was here 15 years ago, I mean, that's like, he's an embryo, isn't he? He's like one of the like first ever people ever. I'd love to see the supporting evidence for that claim, Charles.
Yeah, it's called schizophrenia, isn't it? Sitting there arguing on your own 15 years ago.
Well, he was what he was doing.
Sorry, just 1 second. Quick shout out to Sacred Knowledge, aka Universe, who says, we are not in the Matrix. The Matrix is in us. Now, as much as he might be just trying to be funny and a bit like Morpheus, I do actually think there's a lot of truth in what you've said there, which is to say that the world that we experience is very much created in our own mind's eye. And your mind's eye can create the impression that you're on a sphere Earth when you absolutely are not. So that's what I assume the sentiment you're getting at when you say the Matrix is in us. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, John, go ahead. Thank you for the super chat, by the way.
Charles Flat Earth Math has always used a flat Earth or presupposed a flat Earth in all of his mathematics, except for the Earth curve calculator. But he's always utilized angles and flat Earth, flat baselines. So maybe that's where he got his name.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the more stupid fundies like Where's Wally and such are finding out, when they make the angle measurements in the first place and utilise a flat plane to do so, they can't quite believe it when we are being asked by them about why we'd need it to be curved. When we're claiming it's flat, they're measuring it flat and telling us about how they're measuring it flat, and then don't know why they'd need a curve. They can't quite, it fries their brains to the point where they start asking us questions about why you'd need a flat line to be bent like it was sphere-shaped. It's mad.
Why you make me prove a flat Earth?
Oh, that was priceless. I tried to look for that. It's such a long show, I couldn't find it. I really wanted to trim out Virus when he was caught in exactly that situation. And he starts going... what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? It was absolutely... I just couldn't find it in the after show. Trim it out.
That was probably the funniest part of the show ever.
Absolutely.
I think it was about an hour and a half into the after show when that happened.
It was a long show yesterday.
Yeah, it's 4 hours. No, it's four. Maybe was it more? I think it was more than 4 hours. I can't remember. Either way, it was a very long show.
4 more hours. 4 more hours. Why you make me prove flat Earth?
Why are you making me prove that I've got a flat baseline? Why are you drawing me to this? My answer to him was because, well, that's what you get for free. You get all these Muppets that want my attention. Come and look at this, and come and look at that, and come and watch this video. No. You can ask me, but, I'll just give you an invoice. If you want free, just come here, and what you get is what Virus got, and FE Pilot, who's a Glober, got. That's what you get for free.
I gotta say that was the highest octaves I ever heard Virus go.
Yeah, man. He was squealing like a pig. And I
was thinking of like Michael Jackson. Like he got up like octaves of Michael Jackson with that. That boy can probably sing.
It was the exasperation in his voice when he was being hauled over the coals for proving Earth's flat. Oh, brilliant. It's been a lot of fun in the last week since 2020 began, hauling people over the coals for angle measurements that they're making to make globe Earth assertions. It really has brought a smile to my face and a few tears to my eye, I can't lie. Of joy. Anyway, With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. And this is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!